Morning. Good to see you. Welcome to Southminster Steinhauer United Church. SSUC welcomes everyone, welcomes you with your unique combination of identities and unique place in the world. We work to be a safer place for everyone. We welcome you with your body, its size, its shape, and abilities. We welcome you with your gender, sexual orientation, and way of making family, with your past and culture, and we welcome you here, whether it's your first time here to this place, or whether this is an old haunt. Everything that makes you, you, is welcome in this circle. This circle, I've always wondered about calling it a circle. It looks like a semicircle to me. But with the past few weeks of exploring our identities, I'm seeing more and more how it is a circle. The circle includes the sky, part of our cosmic identity, and the spruce trees out there and these trees in here, part of our connection to the land. And the circle includes water and those of us who we hold in our hearts, and this community of musicians, and this spot here. So it is a circle, and we're all welcome here. On Friday, I went to Children of God, the play about a residential school story. It got me thinking about the individual people who make up the nations we share this land with. In this part of Treaty 6 territory, these groups include Deneta, Nakota Sioux, Blackfoot, Métis, Cree, and others. We express our gratitude and our living commitment to peace, reconciliation, truth, and to a relationship with each other. Let's sing together.
Would you join me as we've lit the candle? Join me in this phrase, we light this candle, as a conclusion to each phrase that I offer. This way we will open our time and gather our thoughts and center ourselves with these words. Because our gathering needs the light of community, we light this candle. Because our lives need the light of spirit and wisdom and awareness, we light this candle. Because there are places close by and places all around the world that need the light of peace and comfort, the light of calm and compassion, we light this candle. Because we celebrate the light within us that shines, that glows, the light of healing and friendship and community, we light this candle. Because there are those among us who walk a shadowy path of grief and loss and who seek community with us, we light this candle. Because there are those among us who celebrate in joy for the wonder of life and the opportunity of this new day, we light this candle. It's time for a story. So, I invite anyone who wants to hear a story to open your ears. But if you want to see it really close, to come over here. This is a good story called Verdi. Verdi was a composer. He wrote music, but this is a different Verdi. This is a Verdi that's about a snake. And we're going to talk a little bit after this story, but I want you to think about who you are, how wonderful you are as the person that you are, and sometimes it's really easy for all of us to think, I'd rather be someone else. I'd rather be better at this or that, or I don't know. We always compare ourselves to other people, and it's too bad because we are all so unique and wonderful just the way we are. I wonder what Verdi has to teach us about that. On a small tropical island, the sun rose high above the steamy jungle. A mother python was sending her hatchlings out into the forest the way all mother pythons do. Grow up big and green as the tree leaves, she called to her little yellow babies as they happily scattered among the trees. But Verdi dawdled. He was proudly eyeing his bright yellow skin. He especially liked the bold stripes that zigzagged down his back. Why the hurry to grow up big and green, he wondered. Maybe some of the older snakes in the jungle could tell him, so Verdi ventured into the treetops to look for them. Umbles, Aggie, and Ribbon were lazing on some branches nearby. Verdi peered at their droopy green bodies. "It's not polite to stare," chided Aggie. Umbles burped and groaned. "It's taken nearly 4 weeks for that last lizard to digest. I surely do like lizards, but lizards don't like me." "Why don't lizards like you?" asked Verdi. "Don't interrupt," Umbles grumbled. "Dear me," whined Aggie. "If I don't shed soon, this itchy skin will drive me bananas." Verdi tapped a tune with his tail as he waited to speak. "Stop that, Verdi. It makes me nervous. Besides, you'll never grow up to be properly green, always interrupting, constantly fidgeting." Verdi couldn't imagine being in such a hurry to be like them, and he really wanted to keep his sporty stripes. Hoping to find snakes that weren't so boring, Verdi slipped away. Dozer was snoring in a tree not far from others. "Hello," said Verdi. "Do you want to climb trees with me?" "I'm tired," Dozer growled. "Go do a few laps around the jungle, okay?" Verdi's heart sank. Greens were not only lazy and boring, they were rude. At the top of a very tall tree, Verdi gripped one branch with his tail and another with his little snake jaws. "I will never be lazy, boring, or green," he thought. "I'll jump and climb and keep moving so fast that I'll stay yellow and striped forever." And then Verdi let go. Zip. Zoom. From a distance, the greens all watched. "Oh my," they chorused. Ripon shook his head. "At this rate, he'll be lucky to make it to his first molt." Aggie nodded. "He's likely to put an eye out on a branch." Umbles moaned. "He may not live to turn green." But one day, Verity's skin began to peel, revealing a pale green stripe stretching along his whole body. "Cack!" he gasped. "How can this be? I'm the speediest snake in the jungle, and I'm still turning green?" He raced down to the river, grabbing up a mouthful of rough leaves. Verity flung himself into the water. "If I can't run this green off, I'll scrub it off," he thought. His frantic splashing caught the eye of a large bottom feeder cruising the murky depths. "Yum," the old fish hummed. "Lunch." Before the fish could haul Verity under, the frightened snake bit him on the nose. Ah! With a blast of his rubbery lips, the great fish sneezed, sending Verity into the air. Slapping into the soggy shore, Verity skidded just out of reach. Phew, that was close. Every inch of his body was now covered with wet, gloppy mud. Kind of lumpy, kind of brown. Sure beats being green. So he left the mud on. But that soft brown muck dried into hard gray shell, and Verity could barely move. If he even budged, the stuff cracked off in jagged chunks. And as pieces fell away, Verity could see that his body was even greener than before. "This is terrible," cried Verity. He pictured himself hanging around in droopy loops, itching and complaining and worrying all day like the old greens. He looked up into the sky where the sun blazed a beautiful yellow, just the color he used to be. Then he pulled a vine to the top of the tree. Launching himself from the treetop, Verity startled a flock of colorful birds. He became dizzy with delight, sure that the bright sun and his lofty speed would turn him golden again. And in his joy, Verity forgot that he would fall back to the earth. Whippity, whippity, flip, flop, wham! Plummeting through the trees, Verity landed in a crooked sprawl across a log on the forest floor. He couldn't move. "Help!" he croaked. As usual, the greens had been watching Verity's antics. They moved quickly to where he lay. "Didn't we say it would come to this?" Umble said, shaking his head. Aggie sighed. "Lucky thing he's still got 2 good eyes." They gently lifted Verity up to a safer place where they could watch over him while he healed. Neatly splinted to a branch, Verity had no choice but to listen to the greens as they gabbed. "Remember how I used to streak across the floor?" Ribbon asked. "Quick as lightning," answered Aggie. "And I climbed giant trees like they were nothing. They grew taller then, you know." "The things I dared to run down and swallow," Umbles bragged. "Wild boar were no match for me." Well, Verity was listening, and he was astonished. "You used to run and climb and hunt giant pigs? What happened?" "Ribbon crashed just like you." "I took a terrible fall and almost put an eye out. Then old Umbles here nearly choked to death. Now we all prefer a quieter life. A warm perch, a little sunshine, an occasional good meal." The greens rambled on about their days of glory, and Verity settled in on his branch. Finally, one afternoon, Umbles said, "Looks like you're ready to go again." Carefully untied Verity from the branch. "You're welcome to come with us," said Aggie. The 3 greens slipped quietly back into the forest. Verity wasn't ready to join them. He wasn't sure where he wanted to go, so he just stretched and stayed put until the sun went down. He listened to the forest as it came alive. A picture of the forest. Time passed. The sun and moon took turns in the sky. Verity marveled as the full moon grew thinner every night. Then he watched patiently as it slowly grew round again. He wondered why he hadn't noticed that before. Verity became so green that he blended perfectly with the leaves. He was so still that other creatures walked right by without seeing him. One fine morning, as Verity basked in the sunshine, 2 small yellow snakes appeared. They tapped and fidgeted as they stared. "Get a load of that old green guy," one of them whispered. "Do you think he ever moves?" The other snickered. I seriously doubt it. They're just like I used to be, thought Verity. And I'm now what I was afraid to be. He looked at his big green body and slowly smiled. How would you like to climb trees with me, he asked. With you? The yellows were astounded. I'll even show you my fancy figure eight, Verity replied, though he was a little worried about putting his eye out. With practice, the three snakes performed a perfect triple figure eight. Leaping and looping with his little striped friends, Verity laughed. I may be big, I may be very green, but I'm still me. All done. All done. Hey, you know what? I just think that this is a great time for all ages story because we all grow and change in different ways. Sometimes we grow taller, sometimes we grow older, sometimes we grow smarter, sometimes we grow in ways we don't expect. But even though we change, we are still us, and we're still unique, and we can be us no matter what life brings. So even though tomorrow might be different than today, I want us to remember that we can be our unique selves. We are us. And like Verity, we can find ways to do it, even if we turn into old, green, lazy snakes. Thanks, everyone. It's in everyone to be wise, in our heart, in our mind, in our eyes. It will grow like a seed in the soil, tended by the love in our lives. It's in everyone to be wise. It's in everyone to be wise. Our heart, in our mind, in our eyes. It will grow like a seed in the soil. In our lives, it's in everyone to be wise.
This is called the Starfish Story. A young man is walking along the ocean and sees a beach on which thousands and thousands of starfish have washed ashore. Further along, he sees an old man walking slowly and stooping often, picking up one starfish after another and tossing each one gently into the ocean. "Why are you throwing starfish into the ocean?" he asks. "Because if the sun is up and the tide is going out, and if I don't throw them further in, they will die." "But, old man, don't you realize there are miles and miles of beach and starfish all along it? You can't possibly save them all. You can't even save 1/10 of them. In fact, even if you work all day, your efforts won't make any difference at all." The old man listened calmly and then bent down to pick up another starfish and threw it into the sea. "It will make a difference to that one." In this story that inspires us to do what we can, may we find wisdom for our lives.
It's really rare that all four Gospels ever give us one particular story. But the story we often celebrate on this Sunday before the festival of Easter is one of those stories that each Gospel gives us. However, in all four of those stories, not a single one of them ever speaks of palm branches. And yet we call this Palm Sunday. And we call this story the Palm Sunday story. The closest we come to palm branches is one of the stories telling us they waved some green leafy things. Each story offers different ideas, different images, different details of the story. But an important story for us to hear in the midst of all that life is in this moment. This is the earliest version of the story we have, the version that Mark's Gospel gives us. It was written sometime around the year 70 in the first century, in a time when the city into which this story is set was destroyed in a revolt and destroyed by the Roman Empire. When Jesus and his friends were nearing Jerusalem, at Bethany on the Mount of Olives, he sent two of his disciples with instructions, saying, "Go to that village across from you, and as soon as you enter, you'll find a colt tethered, one that's never been ridden. Untie it and bring it. And if anyone asks what you're doing, just say, 'Our teacher needs him,' and we'll return him right away." They went and found the colt tied to a door at a street corner, and they untied it. Some of those standing there said, "What are you doing untying that colt?" And the disciples said exactly what they'd been instructed to say, and people left them alone. They brought the colt to Jesus, and they spread their coats on it, and he got on it. And the people gave him a wonderful welcome, some of them throwing their coats on the street, and others spreading out rushes they'd cut in the fields. Running ahead and following after, they were singing out, "Hosanna! Blessed is the one who comes in God's name. Blessed is the coming kingdom, the beloved kingdom of our great-great-grandfather David. Hosanna in the highest." He entered Jerusalem, and he entered the temple. He looked around, saw all that was. It was late in the day, and he went back to Bethany with the 12. In this first century story of a rudimentary protest, I've had an interesting week that began sitting around a table with the Church Council on Justice and Corrections as we talked about the situation in many of our prisons, and we talked about the difficulties faced by an aging prison population, much like an aging country. And I also found myself around the table with my family in New Brunswick. And I was sitting at the dinner table earlier this week. We were joined by a young friend who, like so many in their early 20s, is piecing her life together with bits of employment, working part-time, taking up shifts in a grocery store, and subbing on a casual basis as a teacher's aide on those days that she gets called in, which are usually Mondays and Fridays when somebody wants a long weekend. And as the conversation around our family dinner table unfolded, and we were each talking about our day, she said, "You know, I saved someone's life today." She'd been called into work into a particular school for that day, taking the place of somebody who would generally have been there. And she happened to come into the cafeteria at some point in the day when a kitchen worker was lying on the floor with her lips turning blue, unable to breathe, having choked on a piece of food. Someone was already on the phone with 911, and panicked coworkers were gathered around this woman, trying desperately to follow the instructions of 911 to intervene. And this young friend, with recent first aid experience, was able to do what was needed and succeeded in freeing the airway. She'd been able to do something that others with the same opportunity, for one reason or another, simply couldn't do. And I thought about the extraordinariness of what an ordinary young woman, uniquely placed by the circumstances of that particular day, was able to do in that particular moment. And I began to think that in some less direct and dynamic ways, each of us are placed uniquely to save each other's lives daily. Young people across the country are saving our lives from despair by marching for their lives and ours. These teens who are engaging again and again in peaceful acts of resistance and exposing the evils of gun violence are saving us from surrendering to silence and complacency. Whistleblowers are risking everything to expose the ways in which information and systems are being manipulated to deceive us and to erode democracy. And journalists keep digging and exposing deals that we expect to really be the work of page-turning fiction, not the reality of business practice and government collusion. That's some of the big stuff. But there's the small stuff, the unnoticed and uncelebrated small things that are saving us every day. In the honest customer who turns in the money found in an ATM machine that really belongs to someone else and saves us, restoring our trust in honesty. Or there's the kind smile, the supportive word, the understanding look, the generous act of a stranger that restores our hope in the essential goodness of our species. There's the refusal to laugh at a racist joke. Or the courageous person who speaks his or her conscience, knowing their opinion doesn't really square with the majority, and they restore our faith in integrity. Our lives are being saved daily by those with no extraordinary power who do what they can with the opportunities and the skills they have. And for me, that's really the story of this day that our tradition celebrates. In a clever little piece of street theater, just like the Parkland teens, these peasants from the first century are finding a way to give expression to what is broken in their society. They are marching for their lives. Those who've made their way from Bethany with a borrowed donkey have come together with a little grassroots organizing to walk together and stand together and stand against a corrupt temple system and its complicity in the domination scheme. They come to critique the two most important institutions in their society, the military and the temple. This cleverly staged little drama enters the city from the east to mock the Roman military parade that's marching in from the west, escorting the governor, Pilate, from his headquarters on the Mediterranean in Caesarea. That's where the big crowd of the day is. That's where the triumphal entry is happening. The big crowd of the day is lining the streets to watch Pilate ride his favorite war horse into town, flanked by legions of soldiers in their military dress, making their way to the palace. Just like this time every year, Caesar's highest-ranking civil servant has come to town so that he can be the eye in the sky for the big religious festival, to enforce law and order in the city walls as the city swells from its usual 40,000 residents to over 200,000 pilgrims coming to celebrate Passover. Of course the emperor is going to be edgy. As these pilgrims assemble to reenact their freedom story from an earlier regime, from Pharaoh's Egypt generations before, it wouldn't be rocket science to make the leap from celebrating one liberation to seeking another. But unlike the main stage event, that little fringe festival act from our story doesn't go to Herod's palace, where Pilate's going to stay while he's in town, or the soldiers' garrison, the home of the military power. The borrowed ass and its rider go straight to the temple. And as the story goes, Jesus and his friends don't exploit that stage to incite the soldiers by burning some effigy of Pilate or Caesar. They don't climb the steps of the temple and make a speech rallying the peasants into confronting the military. No one tries to stage a riot. It just simply and brilliantly mocks the power of the emperor and its religious collaborators without saying a word. It's just a simple, creative critique of the temple, which is making an ass of itself. There's no need to shout hatred or make death threats. There's no point in standing there and making all the right points. There's no rant. It's just a tiny bit of careful planning that captures a sense of irony and the use of humor and a farm animal and a few friends and a good song, knowing that those things have a better chance of saving us from apathy and despair at the corruption that is stealing protection from the poor than drawing stones or swords or firing guns or dropping bombs or poking and provoking the opposition. This first-century story of a march on the temple is one of those stories that really could begin with a disclaimer. You know, that disclaimer that would say, now, I don't know whether this ever happened or whether it happened this way, but I know this story is true. Because what makes a story true is not whether it happened. Whether it's the creation of human imagination or the reporting of human observation doesn't matter. A story is true when it tells us something about the truth of our lives. We're not all born to historic acts or heroic acts. We're not all born to fame or fortune. We're not all born to be history makers, but we are all born with the potential to make a difference to someone and to something, because we each have the capacity to do something rather than nothing. This little parody that we've turned into Palm Sunday isn't about someone powerful and famous turning the tide of history. It's about a few very ordinary folk, inspired by a good leader, praying with their feet, challenging the dominant narrative, refusing to sit home and send their thoughts and prayers, but taking their bodies to be a counter-narrative and taking them to the streets, reconstituting the world with a glimpse of another way. The Starfish Story is one of those stories that I would dismiss as hokey, except that it rings true for me. It tells me something that I recognize to be a truth about life. A parable with a truth that inspires simple and seemingly useless action, that tells us the truth that the things we do will not save the world. They won't save every starfish, but the things we do will save someone. We're each uniquely placed in families, in communities, in particular stages of life, in circles of friends, in neighborhoods, in workplaces, in organizations, in spiritual community, in moments in time in which we are the only one that can make the particular difference we make. Someone else might save someone from choking. Someone else might break a big story. But no one can make the difference I can make or you can make, because no one else is me or you. But we forget who we are. We forget that we are unique and we are useful. We forget that we find ourselves in moments where we can stand with, stand for, stand against. Moments in which we can be the one who is kind. We can be the one who's generous. We can be the one who is respectful. We can be the one who is humble. or courageous or truthful or compassionate or loving in a way that no one else can because they have another way to offer it or other opportunities in which to offer it. One of the many versions of that starfish story inspired a man by the name of Dr. Izzadine Abouleish, a Gaza-born doctor who lost 3 of his daughters and his niece to the shelling by Israeli soldiers that bombed his home while he was at the hospital caring for others who had been injured. That starfish story inspired him to place his grief and his loss in the service of others as he shared his memoir in a book entitled I Shall Not Hate. And some years later, he and his surviving children immigrated to Canada and established a foundation called Daughters for Life, a foundation to provide scholarships for young women in the Middle East. When he was asked about his inspiration to do what he's doing, this is what he said. What makes evil flourish? It is good people who do nothing and just watch. The silent camp, which is the majority of people who are watching and allow the minority to dominate through their actions and loud voices. It's time for no one to think that he or she is far from the risk. Maybe the distance is far, but at the end we all live and ride in the same boat. All harm induced. All of us will suffer from it. Actions are more than words. He went on to say, I can tell you a story of a young girl who believes in action. Don't underestimate the power of your actions. Don't reject yourself. Start to do it. Don't wait for others. The young girl was sitting on the shore when hundreds of starfish were thrown out by a heavy tide. She started to think of saving them, to throw them back one by one. She was a young girl with a good heart. A man came across the girl and asked, "What are you doing?" And she said, "I'm saving lives." And he said to her, "But there are hundreds. It's not going to make any difference." With confidence, she threw another one, telling him, "It will make a difference to that one." We're each in a position to make a difference for someone. It is those with no extraordinary power who refuse to be silent, who generation after generation reconstitute the world.
when we've gathered over the last 4 Sundays, we've had the opportunity to share symbols of our identity that have reminded us here of symbols that some of us have shared, and we've also invited every person here to consider choosing symbols for themselves and making for themselves a place in their lives and in their homes that would remind us of who we are. We're reminded that on the first week that we are connected intimately with our elemental selves, with water, with wheat, with our connection to the universe. We've been reminded that we are all human, and we have connections to this humanity of ours, that this Inukshuk reminds us on our table of the accumulated wisdom of humanity stacked upon each other over time that points the way for us. And last week we were reminded by Nell of our connection to our communal selves, that we are all part of community and that community helps to define us and identify us. And her sharing of this family Bible written in Esperanto that connected Nell to her family and to her community.
This week we bring a symbol we will share with each of you and giving you each one to take with you. A symbol that inspires us to be the uniquely placed selves that we are, in our unique circles of influence, in the unique places and situations in which we find ourselves, with the particular personalities and skill sets and opportunities we each have. To refuse to give in to the despair of all that has destroyed so much, but to be inspired by stories like those first century peasants, that parabolic story of an old man or a young girl, or all the ways it is told of the one who did something, even knowing he or she couldn't do everything. A symbol that reminds us of those powerful words of Adrian Rich, that we will be those uniquely placed selves who cast our lot with those who age after age, perversely, with no extraordinary power, reconstitute the world.
Oh, happy day. Oh, happy day. Oh, happy day. Happy day. When justice comes. Justice comes. When justice comes. Justice comes. When justice comes. And hate is driven away. Happy day. Happy day. Oh, happy day. When love prevails, when love prevails, when love prevails, and hate is driven away. And learn to love, to love, lead the way. Lead the way, learn to love in peace every day, every day. Oh, happy day, oh, happy day, when justice comes, when justice comes. When love prevails, hate away. Oh, happy day. Oh, happy day. When justice comes. When justice comes. When love prevails and drives all hate away. Oh, happy day.
We go in the green hope of justice, with the unique light that we each shine into the world. We go to shine in ways no one else can because no one else is us. We go into the moments that open to us, those unique moments where we can do something, where we can be kind, generous, hopeful. And we go in the grace and courage, knowing the sacredness of life, the sacredness of breath, the sacredness that calls us to do what we can, where we can.
Christopher, thanks for watching this video. If you want to watch last week's video, click this button right here. If you can manage it and can donate to SSUC to help us continue this video page, click right here. And for any information that you want about SSUC and our programs, visit our website right there.